Hello everyone, welcome to ReachIvy's webinar series, Know Your Colleges. ReachIvy is a premium education and careers advisory, and I'm Grishma Nanavaty, partner and lead counselor at ReachIvy. With me today, I have Whitney Kestner, who's Assistant Dean of Admissions, and Kristen Egan, who's Associate Director of Admissions at the University of Virginia, Darden School of Business. Welcome, thank you for being with us today. Whitney joined the admissions team in the fall of 2007 and has most recently served as the Director of Operations. During her time in admissions, Whitney helped bring in her first GEMBA class in the fall of 2011, and more recently with Darden's launch in the Washington, D.C. area with their executive MBA program. MBA class in Roslyn. Kristen joined the Darden admissions team in 2013 and works closely with full-time residential applicants from India. She has a passion for working with international applicants from around the world and to help them learn more about Darden's education experience and navigate the admissions process. So thank you, welcome, and really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. And what I'm going to do is going to dive straight into the questions because I know our students are keen to hear from you. Sure. So UVA was founded in 1819, which is, I still think, 200 years ago, but it's still at the forefront of important cross-disciplinary work, and it's really been done by students, faculty across 12 of your schools. So could you share with us a little bit of background about the University of Virginia and the Darden School of Business?
Sure. Well, as you said, 1819, we're actually beginning the bicentennial celebrations next weekend, and those will continue over the next 2 years. So celebrating the university's 200 years, lots of festivities that will take place in Charlottesville, but also around the world, as many members of the university, faculty and administration, President Sullivan will be traveling around and visiting alumni who are located worldwide. So very exciting time in UVA's history. And as you mentioned, sort of a rich history in terms of the academics. What I think that we often talk about at Darden and as part of the university is our sort of that history in our honor code and sort of those values that we hold as an institution, and which really, I think, affords an opportunity for students to sort of be in a place where they are safe, and it's a culture of mutual respect and trust, and with that comes a lot of responsibility, but also with that comes a lot of opportunities for flexibility and independence and things like that. So, Darden has an honor code that our students follow during their time as students. That's really built into our core curriculum as well, where we were the first business school to teach ethics, and so that's been a requirement as part of our core curriculum for a long time, and really the importance of sort of talking about business not just from a numbers perspective, but also sort of taking into account sort of the sort of ethics of that, values of the organization, of the individuals that work within it.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, I mean, your Darden, the MBA program at Darden takes a very active approach to learning, and you don't really lecture,
yes,
but it's more about cases and analyzing, understanding, and reviewing. And I think it's about 500 cases a student works on during the 2 years. So that's really, you really do get a complete grasp of a variety of different business situations. So maybe could you talk a little bit more about the MBA program, specifically the teaching, curriculum, core electives, a little bit more about the program specifics?
Sure. Maybe I'll talk about core and
sure.
Talk about electives.
Yeah.
Yes, the case method is very much, I think, a part of who we are. It has been, it sort of informs everything that we do. In the case method, it is so important that our students are actively involved in that discussion and in the learning process. And because of that, it's extremely important that we have people from all different backgrounds backgrounds, because having that diversity of thought and experience and really life experience is so valuable, and everybody sort of bringing their self to that discussion, and then being able to learn from other people, many of whom they might not have ever had that opportunity to get that type of exposure. So the case method is all about sort of learning from everyone in that room. But with that type of learning environment, you really need to be in a place that supports and encourages that. So it's a very collaborative environment. If you're expected to participate and if you're expected to really share your thoughts, you want to know that you're not going to be sort of discouraged from that, or you're sort of putting yourself out there, which is hard to do. But this is a very supportive environment. That also, kind of getting back to ethics, if you can imagine, those cases touch on some pretty difficult subjects. And so to be in a safe environment where you can talk and ask difficult questions and challenge each other, but in a very constructive way. Again, sort of the case method, I think it informs who works there. Yes, the faculty. I mean, they are incredible facilitators of those discussions. They love to get to know the students, and not just sort of when they're in class with them, but also outside of class. And I think we on staff feel every bit a part of the community, that we are a part of a place that, the more that you put in, the more that you really reap those benefits. So that I do think it's sort of collaboration really extends beyond just.
And I think you have like 5, 6, you have a small group setup where they're discussing it, and then you have like maximum like 50, 60 students in a class, and then you have the whole 350, 365. So it's great that you break it up. So like you said, they feel comfortable, they get to know everyone in smaller environments, and then when they meet at large, they're not so intimidated, which is really great. And then you also have really a wide range of options. I mean, you've got international experiences, domestic field experiences. So maybe could we just talk about, because I think the goal is that at the end of the program, everyone should have had at least one international experience abroad. So maybe if you could speak about how that's happening and what the students are doing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so, that first year, all of our students go through that same core curriculum together. As you mentioned, this past year we had a group of 326 students coming into our incoming class. So we break them into 5 sections of about 60 to 65 students. But then that second year is kind of a choose your own adventure. And that's where students can really pick and choose from so many different types of electives. There's more than 100 different types of courses and electives that they can dive further into based on their interests. But one of those is, we do really strongly encourage all students to take advantage of some sort of global experience before they graduate. And that was a big initiative of our dean, Scott Beardsley. He spent 26 years with McKinsey in Belgium before he came to Darden, so he comes with a really strong international background and really has made that a top priority for our students. So they can take advantage of Darden Worldwide courses. I actually came to India recently in January with a group of our students who were here on one of those courses, and that one was focused in data analytics, so that was really interesting just to see the different companies that they were meeting with and learning more about data science here in India. But we do those all over the world. So first year and second year students can take advantage of those. Those are usually 7 to 10 day trips that students can take advantage of. We do exchange opportunities, so we're partnered with top global MBA programs around the world. So if you're interested in a particular region, there's those opportunities. And then there's global consulting projects. So if we have students that are interested in taking on a more niche project within a certain region or a company, they can work closely alongside faculty within that region to do a consulting project. And then they come back to Darden and present their work to the university community. And it's just some really neat projects that our students are getting to do all around the world. So definitely be thinking about those experiential opportunities that you're interested in. We ask that on our application as well. We ask where you're interested in traveling with Darden. And that's just a really interesting part of the application for us to read, to see where our incoming class is interested in going and the types of opportunities that they want to take advantage of.
And I just want to, we talked about the general MBA program. but last year you launched the Future Year MBA program as well. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that and how is that, I mean, are the Future Year students with the regular, can you maybe talk a little bit about the Future Year program as well?
Sure. The Future Year program, or recently named Future Year Scholars Program, and that is it's a deferred admissions program. So to be eligible for it, you need to be you need to apply as a college senior or a student in a fifth-year master's. So if that was directly after your undergrad, so there are limitations as to who is eligible. If you are offered admission, then you would have the option to come in 2, 3, or maybe 4 years down the road. So you would become, part of the, Kristen said 326 students. So they would be one of the students starting in the year that they matriculated. But these scholars are high performers, have been extremely successful in their undergraduate experience, often have had very significant internship experience, many of them entrepreneurial experience as well, and just extremely talented and with a lot of potential. And so rather than sort of waiting, this program allows us to engage and build that relationship with these future Darden students early. As part of the Scholars Program, if you're admitted and accept, you would have you're guaranteed a $30,000 scholarship as part of the program, so $15,000 per year, and then you would be eligible for additional merit scholarship, and that would be considered in the year that you matriculate. We're also offering opportunities to work with a mentor and to work with someone on sort of career professional advising.
This is during the 2 to 3 year gap.
Yes, before they become a student, and so really, I think there's so much upside, to be part of this program.
It definitely. And do you have like a class number of students you're taking in, or it just depends on the applications and who's the right?
Yeah, it's it is a highly selective program, particularly given sort of the guaranteed scholarship and the like. So we just had our first year, and we welcomed. I think we ended up being around 15 or so students.
Right. So it's a good number. I mean, it's definitely very selective, but
yes.
Still, at least it's still a good enough number that students, would love to take advantage of this opportunity, because we find that a lot. That either in India especially, those students want to go straight after their undergrad, but at least this is good that they have an MBA, that a program that they can apply to, and then they know that 2, 3, whenever they're ready. They're able to
that pressure
take, and that's actually one of the questions I'll have for you at the end, because we have a lot of questions on people who have less than 2 years of work experience, and then the other extreme where they have 8, 10 plus. But I'll say that for the end. We'll get ready. But I actually another. So in your second year, you mentioned that a lot of the electives take place. So, but what about in the first year? What's a typical day like? What does a typical Darden student do?
Sure. So typical day at Darden during your first year starts off at 8 in the morning. You have 3 classes, so you're preparing 3 different cases a day, Monday through Thursday. And so one of my favorite parts of the day is between the first and second class, you'll have first coffee, and that's when all students, staff, faculty come together for coffee, tea, conversation. So I think that's just reflective of the community that we have and how well everyone gets to know each other. And then you have your next 2 classes, and usually our students wrap up by about 1:30. Spend the afternoons preparing the cases for themselves before they meet with their learning teams later in the evenings. We have over 50 clubs and student organizations, so it's a very student-led culture. So there's a lot of time in the afternoon where students are meeting with their clubs and organizations. And then recruiting. Recruiting's a big part of the process throughout your entire time at Darden. So Fridays are no classes. Sometimes there's recruiting activities taking place, conferences. But recruiters start coming to Darden right away. I mean, they're
hit the ground running.
Hit the ground running. Our career advisors work really closely with our students to help them manage that. The program is busy. It's a lot to take on, with your coursework, the cases, but also that recruiting piece as well. So there's a lot of support there to help manage that in your time, especially during that first year.
Super. And so definitely, so a lot of the time students go to an MBA program because they're either looking to change careers, or they have an entrepreneurial venture they want to need support on, or they're just looking to accelerate their trajectory. And Whitney, you having done an undergrad degree in biology and then an MBA can relate, and then having done so many initiatives at Darden can understand where students are coming from. So what does Darden have in its curriculum that really helps the career switchers and then the entrepreneurs? What are the different programs in place for them?
Well, I'll say at the sort of the most basic level, learning in the case method prepares you to deal with ambiguity. So with a case, it's an organizational challenge. There's sort of a story with a protagonist, and you learn about what's going on within that company, and there's appendices with some information. Your job, as Kristen said, you prep it individually, then you work with your learning team, and then you go to class. But where that conversation goes, it can go all over the place. But that daily practice of preparing the cases, analyzing the information, and truly being okay with being uncomfortable in that environment where there's no right answer. It's not going to be sort of wrapped up at the end of that class and say, this is what you should do in this situation. That just doesn't happen. So what we truly believe in is this daily practice of putting you into these different situations, giving you some information, and then what would you do? So in terms of preparing our students, that dealing with ambiguity, being able to be dropped into really any situation and figure out what information do I have, how do I figure out how to get answers, how do I work with different people. You have this practice day in, day out. And we firmly believe that, and I think everybody out there probably will agree that sort of what will become obsolete very quickly. The rate of change that's happening in our world, technology is speeding that up in so many different ways. What we know might not always be the same tomorrow, but it's how we think and how we process information and how we learn to make decisions that is so critical. And so that's I think, by far and away what Darden does such a great job of. So for whatever you choose to do, I think that's incredible training, particularly for entrepreneurs where you're wearing different hats. There's so much there's a fire every day. There's a fire every day. You have to know the legal side, you have to know the marketing side.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are phenomenal programs. Anyone interested in entrepreneurship, please check out the Batten Institute. That is our center really focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. They run incredible programs, incredible electives, opportunities. Our incubator, which is a year-long program that includes that summer accelerator for startup companies. So that's a great.
And what I love is, your website obviously has details on all of that, but I love the subsidized internship that the Batten did. But if a student is looking to do an entrepreneurial internship to help them, you subsidize their internship so that they're still able to earn some money at the same time follow their entrepreneurial dream. So that's super. That's a great
EVIP, EVIP.
Yeah, which is a great initiative to really help. And then, like I said, there's so many more things. You have the incubator. There's so many other things you have for both entrepreneurs and career switchers. So that's great. If I could switch into the numbers a little bit.
Sure.
What type of, I know your website says the 712 GMAT and your average GPA, but if you could give us an indicator of, what type of class profile are you looking, when you look at a student, what are the numbers, the indicators that you're looking for initially in that?
Sure. When we're reading applications, we are really thinking of that case method environment and how that applicant is going to fit within that environment and the background that they're going to bring to that conversation. So it is a holistic review process. We are looking at everything that you are putting forth in that application. I always encourage candidates to look at our class profile just as kind of a gauge of what that looks like, but by no means is there hard numbers that minimum set requirements. You know, I think looking at our GMAT average, you know, just for our incoming students from India, it was pretty wide. It was a 690 to a 770. So beyond that, you know, we're looking at so much more. We're looking at your work experience. We're looking at your previous academic performance. We're reading what your recommendation writers have to say and how you've contributed to your current organization and in your current role. And then the interview. The interview is a really important part of our process. Again, because it is such a collaborative environment and such a highly discussion-based classroom environment. We want to hear from you during that interview, and we want to hear more about just your background leading up to thinking about the MBA and why you see Darden as a good fit. So in terms of numbers, we don't have those, you know, set requirements. I just, you know, I always encourage candidates, look at our profile. Work experience ranges as well. The average incoming was around 4 years, but some students have less than that, some have more than that, but that generally around 3 to 4 is where a number of our students.
Which is something, you know, we tell our students too. You could get the 712 GMAT, the 3.5 GPA, have 5 years, but that doesn't mean you're the right fit for Darden.
Right,
Even if you hit all the benchmarks, because like you said, based on your ethos and the philosophy the school has, they need to, the leadership, the extracurriculars, they need to be engaged in things outside of the workplace, but also have the right impact at the workplace as well. So just hitting all the numbers is not
So much
enough.
more than that, yes.
Absolutely. And one of the things that, I mean, the GMAT on that, the work experience, which I touched upon a little earlier, because we have a lot of students who, you know, straight out of undergrad, they want to go to do an MBA, and then the other extreme that they, you know, unfortunately couldn't do it at the 4, 5, 6, 8 year benchmark, but maybe they have 10, 12 years of work experience. How, like, could you talk a little bit about students who are not, you know, someone who has maybe 1 year and also someone who has 10, how would they be looked at if they apply to Darden?
Sure. You know, I think for when is the right time to go to business school is going to depend and on each individual candidate. And while there is an average, we do have a range. If it's somebody earlier in their career, we are most likely going to look more heavily at the undergrad experience, both academics but also leadership, and to learn how that prospective student took on leadership roles within their undergrad. Oftentimes, you know, when we're in our first or second positions professionally, we might not have had a chance to take ownership to manage people, manage a budget, or maybe manage a project yet. So oftentimes the undergrad is where we can find more information. If you move to the other end of that spectrum, you know, if somebody has 8, 9, 10 years of experience, our lens is going to shift, and our expectations around what that person should be doing or how they should have progressed. So would have more expectations around managing, supervising people, P&L responsibilities, things like that. Sort of continuing on that thread, in terms of Darden, and I feel now we've talked about case methods so much, so if anything, you know, that will stick in your brain. But if you think about an environment where you're learning from everyone in that classroom, not just from the faculty member, who you're in the class with matters. Absolutely. And so if you are early in your career, you want to make sure that you have enough experiences to draw from to be a valuable contributor. You obviously are going to learn a lot, but, you know, are you going to contribute? And then if you're further along, you know, more years of experience than the average, then it's going to be, are you putting yourself in a situation where you're going to learn a lot? You might have a lot of expertise and a lot of experience and be able to contribute a lot and help your classmates, but is that going to be the environment that's truly going to test you and really make this experience worthwhile?
Absolutely. So I guess depending on if you're on either spectrum, really have to introspect and think, you know, like you said, it's not just to get the degree, but am I actually going to grow from it, learn from it. I'm gonna be get value from it for myself, and obviously add to the classroom dynamics as well. So thank you. If I could now shift to the application, you talked about it a little bit before, but maybe could you walk us through this year's application? And I love the essay question too. I know. I think every time I'm talking about with my kids, I started one and good point. That's definitely one situation where I'm constantly involving my thought process. If you could please just walk us through the whole application, that would be great.
Sure. So we're looking at a variety of things in your application, and our first application round 1 deadline is coming up next week on October 5th. So it's a combination of your GRE or GMAT score. So we will take either exam, and you can take that multiple times. We'll look at your highest test score, and then we'll look at your essays. And as Krishna mentioned, this year we're really looking to hear more about a time when your thought process changed. And how that shaped and evolved to where you are now, because that's going to be what happens during the MBA program. Your thought process is going to change, and you're going to be exposed to different ways of thinking. So we want some insight into your own experience with that and how that shaped where you are. Like I mentioned earlier, we also ask where you'd like to travel globally with Darden, and that's always just very interesting to us to see what parts of the world that you're interested in, or what global experiences that you're interested in with Darden. Your letters of recommendation, so we will take 2 letters of recommendation. We do ask that they come from either a current supervisor or manager, somebody who's worked very closely with you and can speak directly to your contributions to that organization, your work as part of a team. I know a lot of our candidates from India sometimes are working for family businesses or entrepreneurs, and they'll often ask, who should I choose?
That would be great.
Yeah, so generally I recommend if there's a client that you've worked very closely with. If you are an entrepreneur, there's usually a partner or an attorney or somebody that you've worked really closely with to get that business up and running. Somebody who can just speak very directly to your work and where you are at in your career. Steer away from choosing a family member. Those can tend to be a little bit biased. We do see a lot of that with our students, especially within India. Just think about those client relationships, and is there somebody who can speak more directly to your work. But definitely keep it as a professional letter of recommendation. We don't get as much insight from a previous professor or an academic letter of recommendation. It really should be somebody that knows you well.
Community involvement, maybe Rotary or something like that. Would that be for a second one? Would that be, or you still prefer the professional rather than?
I think it's up to it's ultimately your decision to choose who you think can speak best. I think choosing at least one professional letter of recommendation is highly recommended. But if there's somebody that you work very closely with in a community organization, especially one that you've taken that significant leadership in,
right.
That's really helpful to get some of that insight as well.
Yeah, I guess so. I think with the application, the students have to see that whatever brings their best side forward. Like you said, if it is something significant, if they just volunteered for an event, it's not really worth it. But if they really made a large scale impact or difference, then I guess I'll have to kind of think, okay, what are my other alternatives in terms of recommendees, and then make a decision.
The recommendation writers really should be your strongest advocates through this process. To have a really strong recommendation can be so compelling. So much of the application is you telling us about yourself and giving us sort of data around how you've performed in different situations academically, the standardized test and the like. But to have somebody that, other than the applicant, who can really share maybe more context, who can, just elaborate and offer so much more. That is really, can be very powerful to complement everything else that you have shared through your application. So think wisely about who you ask, because they can be and should be your champion.
Yeah, absolutely. And even for the essay, I guess students could have to figure out where they've had this situation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a professional setup. It could be in any environment where they feel they're really able to answer the question.
Yeah.
Well, and you also have an optional essay. Who would be the ideal candidate to be optional?
So, as you mentioned, it's completely optional. By no means do you feel like you need to complete that. It's really just if you're looking at everything in your application and if there's anything that you recognize that we might have additional questions about. Maybe there's a gap in your work experience. Maybe it is your choice of recommendation writer. Maybe you couldn't go to your supervisor or your manager for whatever reason. So really that space is just there to let us know, clarify anything that we might have an additional question about in your application. It can just be a quick bulleted list. It does not need to be, an additional essay by any means. It's really just that space if there's just something that you feel like you need to clarify further.
And we're finding more there are a lot of students who are working full time, but like entrepreneurship, they're also trying to launch their own little company, or so they don't know where to put the second little thing that they're working on it. It's obviously not at that stage where they're profitable, but they've been spending a lot of time, effort, energy on their little startups. So I guess if they do have 2 work experiences or they're doing 2 things, they could kind of elaborate and give an idea.
Yeah, I think, and definitely put that on the resume, because I think that's important and significant if that's how you're spending a lot of your time. And we'd love to hear that, how great to sort of learn about that other facet of your life and how you're spending your energy. And that might build to what you want to do going forward, so to understand just more.
Absolutely. And I know that you have the essay question, but you have lots of short questions
Right.
which address all of this in terms of goals or hobbies.
Which are my favorite parts.
I know.
I feel like it's truly our intent that with every question, we really are trying to get to know you as a person. And there's sort of what everybody's going to ask around employment and school history and things like that. But where you want to go with Darden, introducing yourself to your classmates, more around your short-term goals. I feel like that's where we really get that 3-dimensional candidate comes to life.
Absolutely.
And hobbies, and that's always fascinating to see what people do.
Absolutely. That's why you mentioned earlier on, and we mentioned repeatedly that it's a holistic process. It's not just, I have this GMAT score or I'm president of company X, but it's everything you do and how you, how you read into that and how you showcase that matters.
I mean, I will just say, I read an application from start to finish. And so just as you fill it out. So read your application, you can, look at your proof before you submit, and just read it through, and that's how I will read it through. And so everything builds, and as Kristen said, if you feel like after you read it through and there is that gap, maybe that's the additional comments, but just think about how that story is being woven, through your application.
And don't skip, you'd be surprised, oftentimes sometimes candidates will just skip over a section of the application.
Really?
It's just a missed opportunity that you haven't used that space to tell us something more about yourself. So as Whitney mentioned, really just spend time looking at all pieces of that application and make sure that you've taken advantage of every section.
Sure, every question has a reason behind it, so it's important it's answered with 200 years of history. It's very, very important, absolutely. Now if I could, obviously, hopefully all our students are going to be Darden students next year, but we have had students who applied on their own previously and didn't get in to Darden. Now they're working with us. I know one thing which I tell them to take advantage of is you give feedback. Yes. If someone didn't get in, you can provide feedback so that they can reapply and work on their issues. But any tips, anything you'd like to tell our reapplicants out there?
Sure. If you did call and speak with one of us about feedback, thank you for proactively doing that. And if you're able to act on that feedback, that's definitely what we're going to be looking for. We do have a section at the beginning of the application asking you if you are reapplying to just bullet out any changes since you last applied, and sort of a way to highlight that and bring that to the forefront. But we will have your application from last year, and we'll have your new application. Sometimes people get nervous that maybe their career goals have shifted, and that is perfectly fine. That's very expected that those are going to evolve. So there might be an opportunity just to highlight that given time to reflect and talk to more people, you feel now that this, might be a more appropriate next step for you. The letters of recommendation, so if you applied last year, we would only require 1 letter. If it's been more than 1 year, then we'd like to hear from 2 people just because of the lapse of time. But with those, again, to the extent that your recommendation writers can, have them focus on more recent accomplishments, because we will have those letters from last year, and so if they can build on that, add new examples, things like that, that would be helpful.
There's something else I stress to the students. A lot of the time they're like, oh, I'll take my GMAT, and that's something. Yes, it's important to have an appropriate GMAT score, but at the same time, it's important to work on all the elements which you just iterated. That don't just focus on one thing, but try and build build your story. Yes, and based on the feedback, try and see how you can further be the right fit for Darden.
And if I could just add, so that's for reapplying. Sometimes we do put candidates on the wait list, and we do a similar feedback model there. So if you were to be placed on the wait list, you'll be given the option to schedule a call with one of the admissions committee members, and I would definitely encourage you to take advantage of that, because you get very poignant feedback, and you have an opportunity to continue to build a relationship with us. And as we probably all experience, business is social, business is relationship driven. So think about that. You're sort of able to continue to foster this relationship with members of our team.
Thank you for giving students that option, because sometimes they come back and they really don't understand. They feel that or they're not able to gauge what was missing, and it's great to get feedback from the school itself. So thank you for providing students that support. Now, another thing a lot of students, international students, I would say, I think domestic too, but international face is financial aid is a big issue. I know students who apply are automatically considered for merit-based scholarships, but could you maybe just elaborate what other help or options international students have who are applying to Darden?
Sure, it is from primarily the scholarships. Darden doesn't actually have any grad assistant or teacher assistant ship opportunities, and probably at this stage that might be sort of wondering why, or maybe lamenting the fact that we don't have that. But as a student, what that means is that you are having more of that direct engagement with the faculty member, which I think is such a critical and special part of the relationship. So the scholarships are going to be the primary, and then loans, and so we do offer through Discover a loan for our international candidates that does not require a U.S. cosigner. So we've been happy to be able to provide that over the last many years.
And international students do get scholarship, and you have Kristen has shared with us.
Yeah, why don't you share the status?
Yeah, we were just looking at just some of the data from our students coming in from India, and it was really impressive. I mean, it's over 80% that had received a scholarship coming into Darden, and many of those were full or half tuition scholarship amounts.
So that's very, very good to hear. That's super.
So a lot are awarded in full, a half, a third amounts, or smaller amounts. But then there's also second-year scholarships as well. Those are usually merit-based on your academic performance or leadership contributions at Darden. So just know that as well, that there are a number of second-year scholarships awarded.
Great. So it's good to know. I mean, half to full, 80% getting the scholarship. It's a wonderful number. Not only it's silver lining there. And then the other side, obviously, students, the career side of it. And I really have a great career center. And what I love is that you have a professional advisor, and then you have a second-year student advisor. So could you talk to our base about what type of support and help the career services provides international students? Students are also looking to look at employment within the U.S. and then there are others who are wanting to come back as well. So what are the options they have?
Sure. So as you mentioned, all of our students are paired with a functionally aligned career advisor. And what I think is great is that they do career kickoff meetings with all of our students before they even start classes at Darden. So they spend a significant amount of time over the summer with our incoming students and with our international students via Skype or phone calls, really just setting them up for success in that recruitment process, because that first year is very busy. So they want to ensure that you're coming into Darden fully prepared, have your resume, ready to go, have been thoughtful about, what types of recruiters you're interested in, where your current career goals are, and what that process looks like during that first year. And then specifically for our international students, we have our International Student Orientation Program. So one of our career advisors, Denise Cariole, she works very closely with all of our incoming international students. There are more specific questions that our students have around visas and what that looks like, what types of employers are more likely to hire international candidates. So we provide a lot of support up front for our incoming international students with the International Student Orientation Program and then just that career mentoring advice.
So there is, it's great that you're also catering to that student base as well. So, and have specific people aligned, dedicated to that area. So I actually have one more question. I have a couple of student questions for you, but if there was one piece of advice that you could give our students, what would it be?
Other than to work with you?
Yeah.
No, I think that sort of knowing yourself, the MBA experience is wonderful and intense and full, and it flies by. And so you do have a unique opportunity right now to really think about why you want this experience and what you want to do. So the more that you take the time now to reflect, talk to people, sort of figure out your story, figure out things that you like, things that maybe you don't like, it's just going to really help you once day one starts, because it's fast and furious and wonderful, and I think the more that you have a sense of purpose and why you want to go this route, I think it's going to help you really navigate when things are coming at you so quickly and really help it be the most meaningful and impactful experience it can be.
I would just say be authentic, kind of going off of what Whitney said, just, really be yourself throughout this process. That's only going to help you find your fit and the program that's best for you. So that's what we're looking for when we're meeting you, when we're reading your application. So just be authentic throughout the process.
Thank you. And I know sometimes I'm just going to ask you one student question we had.
Okay.
And that was, like I said, a lot of students in India haven't prior MBA. They've done it like straight out of undergrad.
Yeah.
And then they realize that's really not meeting their professional needs, and they're applying. Is Darden open to looking at student applications who've done prior MBA straight out of undergrad? That's fine, as long as I guess they're able to articulate why they need it. Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
This was really fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I guess they can connect with you, look at your website, and there, it has all the details. So thank you so much for listening to us, and please do log on to ReachIvy, look at ReachIvy.com and the YouTube for more videos about students and college applications. Thank you so much.